Welcome to ciplantgo, a podcast aimed at introducing people living a plant-based lifestyle in Japan. For this episode, I interviewed Yuki Takahashi, former globetrotter and researcher in the field of space exploration, who now devotes his time to fight for the animals. He has been working for the ARCJ, the Animal Rights Centers Japan, since April 2019. This episode focuses mainly on Yuki's path to working in Japan last spring. On the way, we explored how Yuki came to grow up both in the USA and in Japan, where he studied, his experience working for SpaceX, his 5 years of nomadism, and his time in Hawaii. We finally ended by a few rapid-fire questions. Yuki's life sounds almost too unreal to be true. In contrast, as you will probably notice listening to this episode, he is very modest and never brags about his achievements. It was a real pleasure getting to know him more during the 2 hours and a half we talked together. Last but not least, you will find in the show notes links to the main animal rights related organizations brought up during this episode. Without further ado, here is Yuki Takahashi. Thank you, Yuki, for being on the podcast. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Well, first, can we start with you introducing yourself, like in as much detail or as less detail as you want?
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name is Yuki Takahashi. I was actually born in the U.S., but came to Japan when I was 5 and went to elementary school in Japan. But then from middle school on, mostly I've been in the U.S. and overseas. And just recently, in end of March, I came back to Japan for the first time since I was like 15 years old to help with the Animal Rights Center Japan here in Shibuya. Yep.
All right. I'd be very curious to ask you quite a few questions about those first years in the US and in Japan. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Sure. So, both your parents are Japanese, right?
Yep. All my family, yeah.
All right. Are they living in Japan or living in the US at the moment?
They all live in Japan.
Okay, so they were. What was the context for you being born in the US and?
Right. So my parents met at Tsukuba University.
Okay.
And then when my father graduated, he went to graduate school in Illinois, and that's where I was born. And then he did his PhD in chemistry, and he finished when I was about 5 years old. So we all went back to Japan, came back to Japan. Yeah, so that's the reason.
Okay, and so the first 5 years, so you were living in the United States. Do you have any memories, recollection of that time?
Just a very little. Yeah. I remember some memory from Easter, egg hunting, and like fishing with my dad without a hook, and things like that. Just isolated memories.
I see. And do you know if you were only talking Japanese? Because 5, you don't have to go to school. It's
Right.
not mandatory yet, right? Did you attend kindergarten, or was it mostly at home within the context of the family?
I think I did go to some kind of kindergarten, but I'm not too sure. And I feel like I didn't speak in English that much because, yeah, and I remember having friends who were also Japanese. So I was speaking within the family. Of course, we were speaking in Japanese, and so yeah, I don't know how much English I actually spoke.
Okay, so you don't really know if English was kind of your second first language or not.
Right.
Okay.
It was not my first language. No.
Well, I mean, the first I'm asking because I was between 2 years old and 5 years old. I was living in the United States as well, and I know that we the kids were talking English, and our parents were talking French. And so that I don't remember. I discussed that with my father, I think, a few years ago, and that's how I know it. But I think English, I can be qualified as my second first language, as in I didn't learn it. Well, I learned it when I was 2-ish, right? So I was curious if it was the same for you or not, but you're not sure there.
Yeah, I'd say it's my second first language.
Okay.
Although right at the moment now, I feel more comfortable in English actually.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely comfortable for me as well. Talking to you in English comes to me more naturally most of the time. So then you go back to Japan and you have your whole elementary schooling years. And all the way you said I think you said 15?
Oh, so before that, when I was 12, when I was in my first year of middle school, my father actually had another assignment in Michigan, United
Okay.
States. So our whole family went there for 2 years.
Oh, okay. Did you get just going back to those elementary schooling years in Japan? Did you attend a Japanese school?
Yeah, I was just a regular Japanese kid.
Is that the way you experienced it, or did you feel like a bit different because of how you had been living until 5 years old in the United States?
I feel like the first 5 years didn't affect me that much because I felt like just any other kid in Japan, and I completely forgot all English, even the alphabet, right away because I never used it anymore. So I'm not sure that it really affected. The only thing is I remember looking up at the sky when I was in Japan and thinking like, oh, America is probably up there in the sky somewhere. Because we
Interesting.
take the airplane.
Interesting. Yes. That is very interesting because, I mean, I'm a bit interested in everything related to education and how people become who they are. And like usually specialists say that the first 4 or 5 years are the most important, you know?
Right.
And so I wonder, I mean, also you were living in the context of a Japanese family, but in the United States. So,
Right.
so how much of your exposure to the actual American way of living where you were, you got, I don't know, but it's good. It's good. I think it can be challenging for kids to feel different than everyone else because they moved around. I definitely got some of that when I was a kid, probably more in middle school than in elementary school. And okay, so you did your elementary years, and then when you moved, how was that? Like going back to the United
so that
States?
was the biggest change in my life when I moved to the U.S. when I was 12, because that changed everything for me actually, because it was a whole new experience to me, and I had to speak I couldn't even speak English, and I had to try to learn it, and it was in small town, Midland, Michigan, with about 50,000 people. So, and mostly white people. So it was a totally different culture, and the school was very different from Japanese schools.
All right. And so you stayed 2 years, is that
Yep,
so?
yep.
2 years? And just out of curiosity, was your father and maybe even your mother speaking some amount of English, or?
Oh yeah. My dad was pretty comfortable in English. My
Okay.
mom not as much, but she was not bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you attended a regular public school in the US?
Yep.
Okay. How did that work out after like 6 months, a year? Did you manage to get by?
Yeah, so even though I was already starting 7th grade in Japan, because of English concerns, I actually went back, started as a 6th grader in elementary school in Michigan. And so I had a tutor who was like helping me with English. She happened to have a very thick, like, I don't know, German accent or something. But anyways, and I was, the elementary school in the US, it was very easy, mostly playing. So no problem. Middle school was not bad either. So not too much problem, except English was still hard. Yeah.
Okay, and so you came back to Japan after 2 years in the States, and how was that transition again? Because that's a lot of changes for a teenager, right?
Right. So, I actually did not want to go back to Japan. So I really wanted to stay in Michigan. I really wanted, so there's a big thing that happened while I was in the US for 2 years. That was, I really wanted to become an astronaut.
Oh, cool.
So, and for that, I thought education in the US and going into a US NASA program or something in the future would be better for me. So that was the main reason I really wanted to stay in the US rather than going back to Japan and doing the juken benkyo, like studying for exams,
Yeah.
to get entrance exams. I didn't want to do that. I didn't think that was gonna be like a real learning.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so having gone back to Japan, I went back as a third 中学3年生, ninth grader
Okay.
in middle school, the last 2 terms of it, and it was not bad, enjoyable, good to see my friends again, and English was, I did well in English class, of course, better than the teacher, and but on the back of my mind, I always knew that I was going to go back to the US.
All right. So if I understand you correctly, you went back to either the same school or at least the school where there were a lot of your friends already
same
there?
school.
Okay. So that might have been pretty helpful, I guess, to not have totally a new environment
Right.
yet again.
Yeah, I was happy to see my friends again.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's cool. Happy to hear it went pretty well on that side. And so then you finish high school and
No, middle school.
middle school, sorry.
Yeah.
And then high school, you go back to the States then?
Well, I actually ended up entering high school in Japan, just because I wasn't able to arrange everything to go back to the US yet.
Okay.
So, yeah, luckily I didn't have to do an entrance exam. Some kind of recommendation letter I was able to get in, so that was nice. But even high school in Japan, it was not bad, but I still wanted to go back to the US. Yeah.
Okay. And so when did you
So
got
after-
back in the US for your college years then?
No. So after only 1 term of high school
okay.
in Japan,
Sorry. Yeah.
went to the US.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's nice.
I
And
find-
so you stayed there until recently then?
Well, actually, so I was in the US, but then right after college, I went to the UK for a year,
Okay.
and then went back to the US, and then the past several years before coming back to Japan recently, I was actually kind of nomadic around the world quite
Okay.
a bit, and then living in Hawaii for a year and a half, and then came to Japan.
All right. Can I ask you what you studied, like, and where did you study for college?
For college, I studied physics because I was really into physics and astronomy and things. So, and I went to California Institute of Technology in Pasadena, near Los Angeles.
Okay. All right. And I think I remember you telling me something about getting a job at. Is that right after you got a job at? Was it SpaceX?
Oh no,
some
that
point?
was much later.
Much later. Okay. So what
Yeah.
did? Sorry, we were not
It's
going to talk
alright.
about this right now. But what did you aim for, and what did you end up doing after college?
So when I was finishing college, I was really into astronomy and also the moon. I really wanted to go to the moon.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So I found an astronomer in Glasgow, Scotland, who was looking into this idea of building a telescope on the moon. So I went to do research with him for
All
a
right.
year. Yeah.
What did that kind of research and what did that kind of life look like being in Glasgow and working on that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
so I was a little bit independent because I was the only person working on that research. And it was a lot of computer work, which I didn't like that much, but I was still super motivated. So I worked hard, and Glasgow was fun. Actually, people are nice. Like Scottish people are friendly and humble, and we went out to drink a lot. I mean, the work culture was super different compared to my college, Caltech. This university, we took a break like every couple hours, like a tea break.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been, I think, only a few hours in Glasgow, traveling through Scotland 5 years ago. But Scotland overall, I had a very, very, very good, let's say, first impression of. I think it was about 9 days I stayed.
Oh, okay.
Like everyone was super nice.
Yeah.
As far as I experimented it, so I'll definitely want to go back if someday I live close enough so that it doesn't feel as far from where I am. Like from Japan, it's very far. So,
Right.
and so after Glasgow, you headed towards the States again?
Yeah. I went back to California,
Mhm.
Berkeley this time for graduate school.
All right. And then what happened?
Oh, so I really loved Berkeley, California. It's a pretty progressive place.
Okay.
Even among the U.S. And that's actually let's see, a year after I started at Berkeley was when I received a booklet by Vegan Outreach.
All right.
And learned about factory farming. Yeah, so that really changed everything for me too.
Okay. So since you bring this up, and obviously this podcast being what it is, we were going to talk about this at some point, but what's your knowledge about everything related to animal products at the time before you got that pamphlet? How was it?
Nothing, basically. Like, I remember when I was in college, for some reason, I was really into health, actually, because I was aiming to become an astronaut.
Yeah, of
I
course.
wanted to be fit and healthy and strong, so I really watched what I ate. I tried to eat very healthy. So at one point, I feel like I tried being vegetarian just for either a couple weeks or a couple months.
Okay.
When I was in college, but I didn't know anything about animals or anything and I also remember in the cafeteria in college there was some vegan cookies,
Okay.
and I had no idea what vegan meant. I thought it was some kind of religion, but then the cookies, I tasted it out of curiosity, and it actually was really good.
But a good first impression then.
Yeah, but then there was also vegan cheese, and it was horrible.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. It's still not that great now, as far as I can tell. So at the time, I can't imagine. Okay, and so you get this pamphlet, and do you remember in how much detail do you remember how you felt, or how you thought what did you think when you read through it?
Yeah, I don't remember that much, but except I saw some pictures that were very disturbing, and because of that, I decided to go to a meeting of the local animal rights organization at UC Berkeley called Berkeley Organization for Animal Advocacy, and then there we watched the videos.
Okay.
And, of slaughterhouse and factory farming and how animals are being treated. Yeah, so that really put a strong impression on me.
Okay. Did you decided at that time to change something to the way you were eating, or to any other kind of aspects of your life?
I don't remember making a very definitive decision, but every time I saw meat, I remember it reminded me of the videos I saw, and I felt so sorry that I could not eat meat. So basically, that's when I did basically stop eating meat.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. And so at that time, you were vegetarian or maybe pescatarian somehow?
Just meat, not eating meat.
Yes.
So seafood, I didn't know anything about at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how inquisitive were you about everything else that you kind of didn't know? Or was it just so overwhelming maybe, or that it didn't cross your mind to look further for more info, or how did that go?
Yeah, so earlier I said when I received the booklet, it changed everything, but I meant it changed everything way in the future. At that point, it didn't change me that much, except that I stopped eating meat. My interests were still in other things like physics, astronomy. Those were my space exploration. Those were still my primary interest. So I was very busy in graduate school, so I didn't spend that much time to investigate further.
All right. Yeah, I mean, we only have 24 hours a day, and depending on where you are in life, and in your, let's say, own exploration of everything related to that problematic of animal products, etc. Sometimes you just stay where you are, the status quo works, and then sometimes you feel like you have to look further, right?
Yeah.
And so you're in Berkeley, and what happened? So you graduate.
Oh, so before I graduated, more things happened.
Let's go.
So a few years later, I decided I felt strongly enough about this treatment of animals for meat that I joined a vegetarian co-op house.
All right.
Like a share house with
cool.
60 people living together, and it was there. UC Berkeley. Berkeley area has many what's called co-ops, cooperative housing systems, and one of them had a theme of being vegetarian, and so I joined, and I loved it so much that I ended up living there the rest of my time in Berkeley. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess you made very good friends over there too.
Yeah. But the biggest thing was shortly after I got in there, they did a vegan workshop. Somebody did, and that's when I learned about dairy and eggs, and that's when I stopped eating those.
I see. So until then, you had not really a clear idea of what veganism was?
No.
Okay. And can you give us a time frame here? So when was that?
This was a long time ago, back in 2007.
Okay. So 12 years ago.
Yeah.
About 12 years ago. I see. And so when you did that change, was there any kind of challenge for you as far as like eating habits or the way you felt about food, or was it like not that hard?
Well, it was not very hard at all because I was living in this co-op where we all got all our food together, and everything one meal a day we cooked together and ate together.
Okay.
And that was all vegan. The only and most of the food there was vegan actually, and it was so good. It was so tasty. Like the cooks we cooked ourselves, but there are some really great cooks, and we got some super good food because we were so many of us, 60 of us. We were able to buy like organic at a good deal, just for like $5 a day per person budget.
Oh, awesome.
We ate more than 90% organic, and we went to farmers market 3 times a day and had deals with the farmers. And yeah, it was the best. So I had no trouble.
Oh, it looks like the perfect start for kind of a vegan, as far as food is concerned, vegan lifestyle, right? That's must be pretty unique. I don't think most people have that kind of opportunity or look for that kind of opportunity. And so in 2007, right? And then what came next? Did you stay there? Like you stayed there a few years,
until
right?
2010.
Okay.
Yeah, until I graduated.
And from there on, did you look for a job in that area or?
Oh no, at that point I was still very much into exploring and space exploration and things like that. So, yeah, I think so. So that's when I started at SpaceX.
Okay, what did that look like? The kind of opportunity presenting itself to you, or you searching for a job that would allow you to explore those interests of yours? What did it look like? Because now SpaceX is so big that everyone probably would think something like, oh, that's so awesome to be working for SpaceX, right? But what did it look like for you at the time?
Yeah, so to be honest, I actually did not want to work at SpaceX right away. My priority after this was a PhD program, and it was so much work that I really wanted to take a break when I finished, and I wanted to take like a year to explore the world, travel the world.
Yeah.
But I was also interested in someday going to outer space by that time I wasn't as much interested in NASA, but more interested in private companies.
Okay.
Like SpaceX. So that's why I applied, and I got the offer, and they wanted me to. I was hoping they would say like, oh, you can wait. You can come in after a year or something after I travel around. But then they wanted me to come right away, and I didn't want to miss this opportunity. So I decided, okay, I'll give it a try for a year. I didn't want to work any more than that because I thought I knew SpaceX would be a lot of work and it will kind of tire me out. So yeah, so that's how I went in thinking of like just staying there for a year.
Okay, so you worked there over a year. What's your take? What did you? What was the takeaway after that year? Is it like an overall positive or like?
Yeah, well, both positive and some possibly negative. Well, it was very positive. So I ended up staying a little over a year and a half, because I wanted to see this mission that I was working on complete and launch and succeed. So yeah, but it was super exciting. I mean, the work was very exciting. The company was like, everyone was very motivated, hardworking, and Elon Musk had a big vision, and like and things were constantly changing. It was very fast paced, and it was pretty exciting stuff. And seeing the rocket, like working on the spacecraft, and like seeing the rocket launch and our spacecraft like docking with the space station and everything going well, that was super exciting. But at the same time, when I was there, I always felt some kind of mujun, like so even though someone like Elon, he's doing this for the world, like I could see that he's like, he has a good big vision of trying to improve the world or save humanity or something like that. But at the same time, people in the company, people didn't know about the food that we were consuming, that we were blindly, people are blindly contributing to some really horrible stuff. Horrible violence and destruction of the environment. Well, mostly the violence, without knowing. So, which would be counter to, for example, Elon's vision, I would think. So I felt there's a big disconnect there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how it is to work for a company such as a high-profile one, such as SpaceX, and everything that you described from the professional side of things, like seeing the mission succeed and everything. That must be awesome. I've only experienced it through movies, I guess.
Right.
But I can relate to some extent with being in a place where you see everyone being passionate and doing their best to improve the world at their own level, but still oblivious to everything related to animal products. I get the same feeling to some extent in my own work, working at school, trying to bring a lot of positive things to students and make them have a great start in their life. But on the other hand, when I look at the food that's being served over there, and it's a bit, as you said, in Japanese, mujun, so you feel a bit like, what's the right word in English?
It's hard to say.
I had it a few days ago. I used it for another context. It's mixed feelings.
Yeah.
Yes. So you're kind of a mixed feelings kind of place, because you're both wanting to do better, but and so how did you? I guess you are super busy, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing already. It's not like you have a lot of time to try to think about how you could improve the situation on that level. But did you think about, or what was the options for food at SpaceX? Were there some vegan options? What was the mindset or like the vibe of the place? Could you like bring up those issues in a way that would start a positive discussion with some people, or was it very much like, let's not talk about this kind of?
Yeah, well, food was pretty much on our own. There was a cafeteria at SpaceX where we could buy food if we wanted to, and the options were not great. I didn't even like really look at it very much because it was not great.
Okay.
Pretty junky food, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I do remember on some occasions I did request like vegetarian options or vegan options, but then the focus of the company was very much different, like not in that direction.
Mhm.
So, but among the small group of about 10 of us, 7 or 10 of us within our own group that I was working in, it was an avionics group. I could, or among the SpaceX friends that I would eat out with, I could talk about it. And my boss actually was pretty understanding. He was like, even though he ate meat and everything, he still donated to organizations like PETA
Okay,
because he resonated with the cause.
I see.
But he didn't go
All
far-
the way,
as far. Yeah. So there was some understanding, and like people respected my choice. So yeah.
Okay. I guess since you didn't stay for more than a year and a half, maybe you don't know, but by any chance, would you know if there's been any change at SpaceX regarding everything related to food options over there or like etc.? I'm asking because I heard from a friend who used to work at Google, or was it a subsidiary of Google, that there were a lot of food options for him, vegan.
Right.
And that was in Japan, so I don't know about the rest of the world. But do you
Yeah.
know anything about that?
No, but I would guess that by now, because SpaceX has grown to be a pretty big company, and I'm sure there are vegan people now. Like when I was working there, I actually don't think I knew any other vegan person in the whole company of like 1,000 or so people,
Okay.
employees. There might have been some, but yeah. So, but by now, I would imagine there would have been have some change, at least options. Yeah.
All right. Well, I surely hope so. And veganism has become even more of a mainstream trend, let's say,
Right.
in recent years, especially in the States and in tech companies.
Yeah.
It's probably even more trendy.
Yeah.
As far as knowledge, at least.
Right.
And last question regarding things revolving around SpaceX, but I've listened to a lot of talks by Elon Musk, even yesterday, actually, very not related to today's interview, but I think it was a presentation about Neuralink.
Okay, yeah.
And I mean, since it's not related, he didn't address anything about food, but has he ever spoken about food-related matters or not at all? I
No.
don't remember anything myself.
Oh, no, not that I know of.
Okay. I would be curious to know his opinion on the matter, though.
Yeah, I have a feeling that like if we provide him with enough information, which I don't know, he might already have, but like I would love for him to,
Take a stance?
take a stance, and I have a feeling with enough like video images and like enough facts and everything, he would be, agreeable to our cause. And
Yeah.
he's someone who's like, if he really believes in something, he will actually change things within the company. So yeah, I think it's worth trying.
Yeah, well, I would be surprised if should he be totally unaware of the situation,
Right.
because of how mainstream it became.
Right.
So I don't know, but I'm very curious about high-profile people, especially intellectuals and people like like tech leaders like Elon Musk and others. You could, like, I don't even know, for example, what Jeff Bezos holds as far as values and stuff, but those are people who usually they're very, let's say, smart, and at least for business, but for a lot of other things. So
Yeah.
when they reject something like the ideas behind veganism, I'm always curious to know why, and really get into the details.
Yeah.
But I can understand that for a lot of reasons, one of which might be public relations, and the image they have to uphold.
Right.
It might not be welcome for them
Right.
by the company and the shareholders and
Right.
everything to just kind of say things in public.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, that's
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, and so after a year and a half of SpaceX, did you manage to get traveling
yeah.
back on the program? That's where you started like being nomadic?
Yeah. for about 5 years.
Oh, 5 years. That's a long time.
Yep.
So on top of your head, could you like list up every location you stayed like for a decent amount of time?
Yeah, so the first place I went was Shanghai
Mm-hmm.
for just a month. I was gonna live there for like a year, but it was getting really hot, so I left. And then after that, I actually went back to San Francisco to help with a startup company for
Okay.
several months.
What kind of company?
It was also a space satellite company
Mhm.
that my friends started.
Okay.
It's called Planet Labs. At that time, it had just started, and it was basically building tiny satellites to image the Earth, and basically making kind of like a Google map, satellite image map, but updated every single day so that you can see changes.
Mhm.
And they thought there would be a lot of applications for that.
I see.
Yeah. So yeah, I helped with them for a little while, and then I went to Antarctica. Actually, I went to
Oh.
work in Antarctica
How long?
it was a winter of like 6.5 months.
6.5 months. So it's very interesting because I just read a book that's called Blueprint. I don't remember the subtitle, but it's about how the author, who's a researcher and also like kind of a investigator, and well, I mean, researchers are investigators, but he's kind of a polymath, and so he's knowledgeable in a lot of fields, and he writes this book with a lot of evidence about about how it is coded in our DNA to some extent, and also in the patterns of different cultures you can observe throughout history, like in human groups and even in other mammals, how we are built to be social and have good intentions towards one another, right? So it's a very optimistic view on humankind. And I share that view, and that book strengthened my view on that. But I'm bringing this up because the experience of living, how many people is that? Like 30 people, something like that?
It was 20
Yeah.
of us.
See, I remember that kind of number from the
Yeah.
book because he actually brings data forward from that exactly that winter there. You know, and like you have two different teams, like two different groups of people. If I'm not wrong, like those who stay the whole year and those who just come for a while and then leave, and that's already one kind of social divide. And so like social experiments are super interesting to be led in that kind of context because of how isolated everyone is.
Right.
So just whatever you want about this experience, I'm very curious to hear about it.
Yeah, it was so amazing. I mean, the reason I went is actually, I didn't tell you, when I was in Berkeley as a graduate student, I got to go to the South Pole of
All right.
Antarctica, in the
Cool.
middle of Antarctica, because my thesis project was to build a telescope at the South Pole and set it up. So I got to go there actually 4 times during the summer months of like 2 to 3 months at a time.
Okay.
So this time, though, I went as a job, as work, and it was like living completely in nature. It was amazing. Just like it was a little island on the Antarctic Peninsula. We took a boat, a vessel from Punta Arenas, Chile, the southern tip of Chile. Took about 4 or 5 days to get there, and there was the ocean and glacier behind, constantly calving and making like thunder-like noise. And I would actually, even though we had buildings to sleep in, I love being outside. So I ended up camping outside in a tent pretty much throughout the whole winter, either the tent or like a little hut.
Am I right in saying that would be only nighttime or only daytime? No,
Yeah,
only daytime,
so
right?
we got there in March, which would be like the fall, and there would be like half of day and half of night. But during the middle of the winter, it was mostly night.
Okay, but
And then-
isn't that like just crazy cold to be
It was
going in a
actually
tent outside?
so. This place, unlike the South Pole, where I went first, in the middle of the continent, this place was on the peninsula, which is fairly high in latitude. Like it was pretty far north.
Okay.
So it was not that cold. Like yeah. Then the coldest it got was negative 28 degrees.
Okay, nothing.
Well, but yeah, sometimes it even rained. Warm enough to rain. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and so those were your first experience in Antarctica, and then the 6-month-ish winter you spent for like after Shanghai, right?
After Shanghai, yeah, and San Francisco.
Yeah. So, what was it like? It was related to research, obviously, right?
I was supporting. I was a communications technician, so I was like responsible for all aspects of communication at that station, like satellite communication and radios and things like that.
All right, and so again, what was the? Do you have any anecdotes or something that you could share that kind of shows how special a kind of context it was?
Yeah. So, the most amazing thing about that place was probably the penguins. Maybe like the first night that I went out to the tent, I didn't know where the tent was exactly, and it was already dark, and I was using the flashlight, and all of a sudden in my spotlight of flashlight appeared a penguin. And like we were both stunned. Like I think both that penguin and I was equally surprised. But anyways, in addition to all the penguins, there were a lot of seals, different kinds of seals. And I always, whenever I had free time, I would go hiking in the glacier or take the boat out to different islands and look for, these wildlife and try to hang out with them. Just like, sit there and observe.
All right. And how was working and living with that small group of 20-ish people for half a year like?
Yeah, so it was, luckily pretty much everybody was really great people. So we got along well, and I had a lot of fun. The only thing is there was no other vegetarian person in that whole group, and you'll be stuck with these people for half a year. You need to work well with them, right? So I mean at that time I wasn't even vegan yet at that time, because I was still I wanted to be vegan, but I didn't wanna. There was a chef, a cook, who prepared all the meals for us, and I didn't want to make it like too difficult for him and for them. Just preparing something different for me every time and stuff. So I did allow, like I said, like wild caught fish is okay. Like, because I thought, okay, at least if the fish was like living a normal life until they were caught, maybe it's not quite as bad. So I didn't really want to, but I did make a compromise there.
I see. I can't imagine how you would have really done otherwise anyways, but so because to put back in context your journey there, you had a fully vegan diet when you were doing the co-op thing in Berkeley, and then you went to SpaceX where you still managed to be vegan, I guess.
Well, I was on my own, but then like I don't remember. Yeah, I think I was pretty much vegan, although I was not as strict about wild fish. Like I was really against fish farming, but
Okay, and then Shanghai, like only a month, and then Antarctica. All right, and so from the start, your mission over there was only like 6 months, right? Yeah. And so did you have any plans going in for the next step, or was it kind of up in the air and you decided along the way?
You mean like doing another?
Like what was next after Antarctica?
What was next? So I mean, I would have loved to have gone back to Antarctica, gone back to that same spot, because I loved the experience so much. I didn't want to leave even after 6.5 months. But at that time, I was really into exploration mode where I wanted to experience something new each time. So, actually, right after that, because we took the vessel back to Chile, I was already in South America, so I backpacked around South America for 3 months.
All right.
Yeah.
How did that go? Did you get any Spanish in?
Oh yeah, that's when I started learning. Well, started trying to learn Spanish. I hitchhiked everywhere, so I just tried my best to try to speak in Spanish with the drivers and things like that. Yeah, so I really enjoyed it.
I can imagine. Yes. So you went from Chile to like all countries in on the continent, or
no, just the southern half, like Argentina, and then Uruguay, Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, and back to Chile.
All right. How long?
3 months.
3 months? Yeah, you told me, right? 3 months. I see. And so during that time, were you like kind of already? Did you decide from the start it was going to be 3 months, or was it?
Yeah, I already had a return ticket because the Antarctica work had paid for the flight back to the U.S.
Okay, I see. I see. So back to the U.S. What was the next step?
Oh, then let's see. I was back in the U.S. and then what did I do? Oh, I went to Japan.
All right.
And actually, I realized that I hadn't really explored Japan, my home country, very much. So I went for 3 months, spent like 3 months in Japan.
Yeah.
Exploring kind of the southern part of Japan. Yeah.
Okay. And it's hard to keep track with the timeline here, but I mean, it's fascinating. It's so much wilder than my life story, which is already pretty hectic by a lot of people's standards. So I love it. But so here we would be like what?
2014, the beginning of 2014, yeah.
Okay. And so that's the US. And what's your next stop?
Okay, so after about 3 months in Japan.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I wasn't. So US, Japan.
Yeah. I wanted to. I went to Chile. I went to work in Chile this
really?
time. Yeah, in the Atacama Desert.
Oh.
At on a telescope that was at 5,150 meter altitude, and it was a beautiful. I was there for about 3 months or so. Yeah. Partly because I wanted to, practice Spanish and have experience working in a different culture, different country. Yeah.
I see, and so that was also like a limited in time contract.
Yeah.
All right. And did you try to stay longer, or did you move after that?
No, partly because actually I had started dating somebody in Japan. Shortly right before I went to Chile.
Yeah, that's always the best idea.
Yeah,
to have,
so
right?
I was back in Japan quite a bit after that. Yeah.
All right, and then you went to Hawaii.
No,
Not
there's
yet.
quite a bit more actually. Sorry.
No worries. Go ahead.
Yeah. So after that, let's see. Well, actually, for the second half of 2014, even though at the same time I was dating someone in Kagoshima, my sister, I had convinced my sister, my youngest sister, to take a leave of absence from work because she was having some medical issues.
Okay.
And I thought it was related to her work, stress or something. So, and she did agree to take a leave of absence for half a year, but she wanted to take advantage of that time to do something, explore the world.
I see.
So I ended up kind of traveling with her quite a bit around the world. Yeah. And then 2015, I actually went to work in Greenland.
All right.
Yeah, on top of the ice cap in the middle of Greenland at 3,300 meter altitude, and for about 4 months or so. And that was also quite amazing.
One after the other amazing places you've been to. And so at that point, what's your mindset? So you've been traveling a lot, right?
Yeah.
Already. You told us it would last 5 years in total. that kind of nomadic lifestyle.
Yeah.
But at that moment in time, what was your mindset? Do you remember, like, okay, now I'm in Greenland, I'm working on this. I feel like I still have way more to explore, or was it more like I feel like I want to be somewhere longer?
Yeah, at that point, I was in a mode where I just wanted to experience and see as much as possible while I'm free. And that was my priority. I wanted to experience different cultures, different lands. So I kept seeking different opportunities.
How did you manage to make food work for you throughout all those travels? So you already told us about how you compromised for Antarctica, but was that the case for part of your other destinations?
Yeah, let's see. So after Antarctica, I was in Chile, I guess. In Chile too. The concept of vegetarianism or veganism wasn't there much at all. And somebody else again was like cooking the food for us. When I was on my own, like when I ate out or something, I was vegan. But for that cook person, I said, okay, fish is okay. So I remember it was funny. Like, I guess that it was such a even just not. Oh, actually, no, I did manage. Right, I said fish was okay, but no dairy or no eggs or anything like that. And I guess that was such a foreign concept to the people there, that like I remember on the cookbook, in front of the cookbook, there was a big sticker, big note saying like, Yuki does not eat any meat, any eggs, any like all these like listing all these things for me, which was nice, but it just shows that they're not used to that kind of thing. And in Greenland too, I had to, especially that was hard because it was a small team of just 6 of us, and we took turns cooking for each other one night a week, and nobody else was vegetarian or anything. So, so I compromised and said fish is okay.
I see. Yeah, but I can't really imagine how someone who would have refused to compromise could have been through all those different experiences and make teamwork work with people that hold different views. I think the best thing to do if you still take on those kind of missions, etc., is to show that you're flexible, right? But also maybe if people happen to ask you questions, to really be clear about why you would prefer to eat only plant-based, right? So thanks for sharing that with us. I can imagine it wasn't easy to eat all that while holding the views you had at the time. And so you're in Greenland, and so you still want to explore, and what's the next step?
The next step was on the way after finishing Greenland, because I was in the area, I got to explore the Nordic countries a little bit. And then, let's see, 2015. I was back in Japan for a summer, like a few months, because I was still dating this person. But then I broke up.
Long distance is harsh.
Yeah. And then I went to work in Alaska.
Okay.
Because I had made friends in Antarctica who were from Alaska and heard different things, great, amazing things about Alaska. So I was there for a couple months, and then I was actually, of all places, I was in Kansas City, Missouri. One of my best friends lived there, and I had gone to that Tennessee for like a friend's wedding, and I was spending some time in Kansas City, and then looking for the next thing to do.
All right. And what was that next thing then after
The next thing.
Kansas
So
City?
so by that time my interest had shifted more and more into animals. Like
Okay.
at that point it was still like wild or yeah. Like I wanted to explore that aspect, like animal aspects of this planet.
Mhm.
So and contribute in any way. So I ended up going to Midway Atoll, which is on a little island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Okay.
And it's a wildlife refuge. And because I had been working in like kind of cold places like Antarctica,
Sure.
Greenland, Alaska. So just for change, I wanted to work in a tropical island in the Pacific. So yeah, it was a 6-month volunteer gig with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
I see.
But actually, so this place, Midway, was the most amazing place I've ever been to.
All right.
Yeah.
Explain.
Well, because, man, it was a small island of like 1 kilometer by 2 kilometers, but there were millions of birds, albatross and other birds. And when I got there in March or April, there were a bunch of albatross chicks, the little babies,
Mhm.
all over the ground
Oh.
because they nest on the ground.
Okay.
Like maybe every square meter there would be one chick. and they were the most adorable little chicks, and I fell in love with them. And I got to, throughout the 6 months that I was there, or like yes, I got to see them grow up and like learn to walk, dragging their big bellies and like then flapping their wings and eventually learning to fly and fledge, and that was amazing.
I see. I see. Why? So it was only 6 months. Did you try to stay longer or to repeat that kind of experience somewhere else?
Well, actually, even before I started that job, by that time when I was in Kansas City, it was when I was in Kansas City that I actually one night I was sleeping, I was laying, and I was thinking about like what am I gonna do next? And that's when I thought I really wanted to contribute to this cause of like helping these animals, like these situations with factory farming.
Mm-hmm.
I really felt like that was the worst thing that I can imagine in this world, and so that was what I really wanted to do, but I couldn't find such opportunity. I applied for several like opportunities, but my backgrounds were completely different, so I just took this Midway one. But yeah, so even when I was at Midway, I was applying to like different places like animal sanctuaries, internship at like various animal rights organizations. Yeah, so.
And what did you end up finding as far as opportunities?
So it was very hard, like I said. There's no, it was hard to find opportunities. So I ended up working in Antarctica again, actually,
Okay.
at a different station for 4.5 months. But even when I was there, I kept looking for something else. Yeah. So, but after I finished the last gig in Antarctica was when I started when I was at Midway, that's when I actually became real vegan.
Okay.
I stopped eating fish.
I got it. Yeah. So, that brings me the question of what happened in Antarctica. Then, did you compromise again, or
No. This
for a
time,
month?
no. This time it was also partly. Well, it was easier, fortunately, because it was a big station this time, of like almost 1,000 people.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was more accommodation for different. At least for vegetarian, it was pretty accommodating.
Yeah.
I only found like one other vegan person there,
Mm-hmm.
but still, it's not like you had to get along with like a small group of people in a tight space. It was like a small town, so I could
see.
practice my diet.
All right. Did you manage to find something that was closer to what you wanted to do to help animals while you were there, or was the next step still like kind of?
Yeah. Even when I was there, I did start doing some kind of like outreach, giving presentation about plant-based foods to the people on the station in Antarctica and stuff. But yeah, I didn't really find anything yet, actually, as far as like real opportunity, jobs, work, or internships. So,
So, where did you end up next then
So-
after Antarctica?
I ended up exploring more. I spent like a month in New Zealand because
Alright.
this time we flew from New Zealand to Antarctica. So
Okay.
I explored New Zealand. I was in Australia for like, when I was in New Zealand, actually, I helped with the vegan commune, like kind of like the work trade.
All right.
Yeah, so there that's when I watched Earthlings
Oh, really?
for the first time. Yeah, so, and it really, raised my determination even more for this cause. And then, after Australia, I was in Denmark to spend time with my other sister, who was doing a pottery artist in residence thing.
All right.
And then after that, because I was in Europe, I found all throughout this whole time I was looking for opportunities to contribute to this vegan or animal rights cause.
Yeah.
I found I remember when I was in at this commune in New Zealand, vegan commune in New Zealand, called Gentle World. I looked in a book and saw this animal sanctuary in Spain.
Oh, really?
So I contacted them and I ended up volunteering for them for a month.
All right.
Yeah.
So you were able to get lodging and food and
Yeah.
that kind of stuff for a month?
Yeah.
Okay, how was that experience?
Oh, that was a lot of work, actually.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Realized how
What-
much work
Yeah,
sanctuaries.
what animals did they have?
They had about a couple hundred animals of pigs, chickens, horses, cows, cats and dogs, and sheep
Okay.
or goats maybe. Yeah.
Okay. I do you know a woman called what's her name again? Fiona Oakes,
Fiona Oakes? No.
the marathon
no.
runner that's vegan as well.
Oh,
She's has a sanctuary in the UK. I think
okay.
she has about 400
Wow.
heads.
Mhm.
I guess that's the term you use, right? And I think she's taking care of them alone or with her husband only, and while training for marathon running and everything. So it's a crazy schedule, and
Yeah.
she's pretty famous because she holds records. She's run North Pole and like I think she's run a marathon in the Antarctica as well.
Wow.
She's hold like
Mhm.
records for crazy stuff like that, and she also has one kneecap less than everyone because
Wow.
she had legs problem in her
Mhm.
teens. So she's this crazy out of this world
Yeah.
person, but she's super adamant about like veganism and the animal movements. Like she's been vegan of her own choice, like at least in her head. I don't know about her eating habits at that time, but since she was like around 5 or 6 or something
Yeah.
like that. So it's a very rare profile, but you saying that's a lot of work. I said I can imagine. It's because I read some things that she shared. There's a few movies online that you can find that presents her. You know What the Health, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the director of What the Health, his next movie after What the Health was a movie called Running for Good, and that's about Fiona Oakes.
Oh, okay.
So it's a very good one.
Right.
I really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
And so you're at the sanctuary. How many other volunteers?
There
or-
were some volunteers came and went, but there were like between just a few, like a couple to several.
All right. What would one day at a sanctuary doing that kind of work look like?
Yeah, we would like wake up around 6 or maybe 7, and then have breakfast, and then like get to work right away, and then like we had various work, but especially guys, we did a lot of like building things, like building housing for the animals.
All right.
And also, I did a lot of collecting poop.
Yeah, part of the job.
Yeah, and also maintaining or fixing fencing around the property, and electrical fence and things like that. Yeah, and then around 2 p.m. Yeah, around 2 p.m. when it got really hot, because this was in Spain.
In
we
Spain,
had
yes.
siesta.
Can I ask you where it is?
It's called, it's near Tarragona, Reus, near Barcelona.
All right.
Yeah. So it was a little inland and in a very rural place.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But-
I'll keep it in mind because I might
Oh, yeah.
go to Spain at some point in the not so far future, maybe within a year or two. We'll see if that happens. But if
Okay.
it happens, I'll definitely want to have a look.
Yeah, it's called El Hogar Animal Sanctuary.
All right.
So,
Cool. Thanks.
Um,
And yeah, so
yeah, so 2 because it was Spain, 2 to 5 p.m. we had siesta,
of course, of course.
where we fell asleep mostly. And then 5 we got back to work, and until like 9 or sometimes even 10 p.m. and then we had dinner around 10, and then went to sleep back around like midnight or something.
I see. Yeah. Spanish work life and kind of like that rhythm is very Spanish, right? Like the siesta in the middle of the day, so you eat late and everything.
Yeah.
Yes. And so you do that for a month. And what did that bring you? Because you were already very engaged,
Yeah.
right? Emotionally, intellectually,
Yeah.
with everything related to animal rights, etc. What did that bring you working directly with animals like that for a month?
Yeah, it was definitely, before that, I guess I hadn't had much experience working closely with those farmed animals, traditionally farmed animals before. So it was, and I really enjoyed the hands-on experience, and especially I really fell in love. Well, I really loved this one turkey called Julia. When I was picking up poop across the big field, like I was picking up cow poop, pig's poop, and stuff, Julia would keep following me, and I would like put down my tools and Julia would sit down to be petted. I would pet her. Her body was black, and it was often very sunny and hot, so her body was super hot. But I guess she really liked it. So, and then I had to go back to work, so I would go back to picking up poop, and she would keep following me. And it was so adorable. Our turkey. I hadn't had an experience like that before. So yeah, that kind of close connection with animals. I don't know. I haven't thought too much about it, but it was definitely valuable in terms of later talking to people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, how was that valuable? Like, was it directly, or was it just like you just were so much 100% sure that this was the best fight you could, take part in?
This was the best what?
Yeah, fight you could fight, right? So was
Oh.
it like this experience something you could share with people, like directly telling them anecdotes from your time there, or was it more something that just made you more feeling stronger even about the cause?
Actually, even before this internship, I had felt strongly enough about this cause. So that didn't. I'd say my determination didn't increase anymore because it was my priority. Working for this cause was already a priority at this point. Yeah, but in terms of even today, nowadays, talking to people on the streets about different animals, it's been helpful to have had actual direct experience with these, like chickens or cows or pigs. Yeah.
I see. I can imagine it definitely brings more life to data.
Yeah.
So where did you go after Spain then?
After Spain, then I went I started a series of internships volunteering in this field. I went to Boston to intern with the Humane League Boston branch
Okay.
for the summer. Yeah, and that was great too. That was completely different from helping with the sanctuary. Do you know the Humane League?
Yes. Are they focused on caged eggs and stuff like that, right?
That's their maybe the priority.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
they work on everything, all the farm
okay.
animal issues. So yeah, there's a branch in Japan too. Here in Japan too.
Yeah.
And
I've
so
met and like I think the first vegan meetup I attended, or the second one actually, was with the woman who's leading the Human League here in Japan.
Right.
Yeah. So I think like the vegan the vegan league, the Human League has an approach that's more based on looking at data and where you can have the most efficient impact.
Yeah. Right.
So like what's the correct word again?
Effective
altruism. So
Yeah.
I've met a few people that are working on this in Japan.
Right.
And so I'm also myself very interested in everything related to effective altruism. So
Right.
all right, what was the experience working for?
Yeah. So
Humane League there?
actually, Humane League. That's when I learned about effective altruism
Okay.
too, and I thought, and Humane League's approach is based on that, and I thought, yeah, it is a very effective organization. Considering the limited resources available, and I got to do more like grassroots outreach, like just like talking to people, leafleting, like, and also campaigns like targeted at particular companies. At that time, we were doing a campaign with targeting this food service company called Dardane that that runs all these like Capitol Grill, like these chain restaurants.
All right.
And trying to get them to commit to cage-free
Yes.
eggs, using cage-free eggs. Yeah, so we were targeting, like, we were in front of these restaurants, like, telling to the bypassers about the reality of battery cages and things like that.
Yeah. Am I wrong in saying that the Human League is one of the main actors that got big companies like, I think, McDonald's and others to stop caged eggs?
Right. That's true. Yeah. Like Starbucks even.
Yeah. Well, it's a big leap forward towards better conditions for the animals. Although I think we're both on the same page about how we wouldn't want any animals to be exploited for what they produce. But it's still a huge leap forward. It means less suffering overall, and it's hard to feel 100% like the what you want to really fight for. But when you look at the data, you need to be looking at numbers, right? And to convince yourself that it's probably the best approach in that area.
Yeah.
And then after Boston, that was Boston.
After that, after that, I did another internship with Vegan Outreach.
Okay.
This nonprofit, from which I got the original booklet when I was back in Berkeley.
Oh, right. Yes, true.
Yeah, and I wanted to. At first, I was like, this would be for 5 weeks during the beginning of the fall semester, first half of the fall semester, and it was a tour visiting many different campuses from Florida to, like, we went through Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas. We ended up going to about 29 schools, campuses, giving out these booklets, Vegan Outreach booklets. Yeah.
All right. And how did that go, leafletting, etc.? Because it can be pretty hard, right?
Yeah, no, it was very, actually. So at first, what I was saying was, like, at first, I thought, man, is it going to be just boring, just like being like a robot, giving out flyers? But then when I did it, it was actually super rewarding and engaging because the reaction of people are different. Like, everyone reacts differently to you giving out flyers, and like you learn quite a bit about human nature, and also like just engaging in quite a bit of conversations through this, and seeing many people like getting the booklets and reading it right there on the spot, and even sometimes coming back to me and like talking, asking like really good questions, and like sometimes even saying that they had already become vegan from getting these booklets before in previous semesters and things like that. So yeah, it was actually a super good experience.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And where did you go next then? What was the
After
next
that,
step?
let's see. After that, I drawing a blank. Didn't get enough sleep last night.
No worries.
Let's see. What did I do? After that, vegan outreach. I went to Hawaii. Wait. Oh no, yeah, I went to Hawaii. Right. I moved to Hawaii at that time. Oh no, sorry. I did another internship at organization non-profit called Farm Sanctuary, which is another sanctuary, but in California.
All right.
And it's do you know Farm Sanctuary?
Not at all.
Oh, okay. It is probably the largest sanctuary organization in the world.
Okay, so they have different places then?
Yeah, mostly just 3. One in New York, upstate New York, and then 2 in California, Southern California and Northern California.
I see.
And I was in the Northern California one.
Okay.
And,
how long was that?
It was just a month. And it was kind of somewhat similar to my experience in Spain.
Yeah.
Although the culture was very different.
I can imagine.
And so that was good too. It was a lot of work again.
Long days.
Yeah.
Going back, since you're bringing this up, about those sanctuaries, both the one in Spain and the one you went to, like in California, were they like growing their own food, or was there no agriculture going on?
Not there. Yeah, they were like the Spain one they were growing some herbs and things, but that's about it.
All right.
In California, no. Yeah, we just went to the store to buy stuff.
I see. Okay, got it. And so after that, you finally come to Hawaii.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the only part, because for the listeners here, it might sound a bit like a long time, like we spent just like going through all the destinations you traveled and you worked at, etc. But I only knew about Hawaii, really, right?
Oh, okay.
So when you meet people, usually I remember you presenting yourself like, I've been in Japan for only a year or so, and before that I was in Hawaii, But obviously, if you had to go through every destination when you meet someone, it would be endless. So that's why I brought up Hawaii earlier. And I think you stayed quite a while in Hawaii, right?
Yeah, so by that time, I was very, again, determined to work for this cause. So I did not have moving around was no longer my priority. So I wanted to settle myself somewhere where I can be happy and try to work for this cause. So I chose Hawaii based on, of all the places I had been before, I really loved the nature there. So I went to the big island of Hawaii. Yeah.
All right. How was, what work did you end up doing over there?
Yeah, so again, it was basically, it was hard to find any opportunities in this animal rights or this cause. So I ended up working half-time for another space exploration nonprofit.
Right.
This time it was a nonprofit. Yeah.
I see. So you went back to your previous trade at that time.
Yeah, because I could do that work, and that would allow me to live in Hawaii.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. But I guess you stayed busy with like some amount of activism on the side, right?
Yeah. No, actually, because I wanted to focus. By that time, I had also started a remote internship with another organization called Good Food Institute. Do you know that one?
Nope.
Oh, this is another really great organization based in the United States, but they also work based on the principle of effective altruism, but they're trying to basically promote alternatives to plant-based meat,
All right.
including also like cultured what's called clean meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cell-grown meat, kind of things.
Which I think realistically has a huge potential.
Yes.
So I did a remote because from Hawaii I couldn't find a local organization to work with.
Mhm.
So I did an internship with them, and because I wanted to dedicate, my priority was there. So for the space moon job, I just decided to work 20 hours a week, half time.
I see.
Yeah, so that I could use the rest of my time for this, what I really think.
How did that work out?
Pretty good, yeah. The moon work was, my coworkers were great, and so I enjoyed the work. Although at the same time, to be honest, I did feel like whenever I was working on this moon space stuff, I was not using my time where I really wanted to.
I see.
I always constantly felt like, oh man, I could be doing something else for this animal cause.
Yeah.
But I had enough free time to do a lot of I actually started a chapter of Anonymous for the Voiceless, Cube of Truth in Hawaii, and I did a lot of food sampling outreach and street activism, things like that. So
How did that? So just to put back here the context for the time you spent in Hawaii, I think you stayed there. Did you tell me a year and a half?
A year and a yeah, a year and a
All
half.
right. How? So you started this Cube of Truth, voiceless Animals for the Voiceless in Hawaii. How did that go? Did it grow to a satisfactory level? Or
Definitely. It was not easy because this big island, the whole population of the island is 200,000 or so, and it's very spread out. And it's hard to get people to join such activism. There was not too much culture of that at all. And so at first, many of the cubes, it was not even a cube. It was just me and one other person sometimes.
I see.
But we still did it. But some other times, I try to, grow, make it bigger. And sometimes we had almost 10 people at some point. And so, it was definitely worth doing.
Okay. I remember hearing one of my previous guests, and I think one of our common friends, probably Darcy, his stories about Hawaii because he grew up there. So I remember some things he said about Hawaii, but obviously that was way before your time over there. And I can imagine how difficult it is when the density of the population is not that right. important. And also, from what I remember him telling me, the food culture is very reliant on animal products, right?
Yeah. It is unfortunately very meat-centered.
Yeah. And so, you were working there doing activism on your free time, and I guess at the same time looking for opportunities for the next step, right?
Yeah.
Is that how you came up, the first opportunity that seemed a good one? That was the one with the Animal Rights Center here in Japan?
Yeah. So, my family was still in Japan, so I would come visit Japan once in a while. And at one point, when I was here for the New Year's or something, I looked up what... Actually, during the Good Food Institute internship, I learned about Animal Rights Center because I was investigating different organizations in Japan in this field, in this area, and I learned about Animal Rights Center. So, and I learned from maybe Facebook events or something that they were doing these events, activism events, outreach in Shibuya. So I joined those, and I got to, know these people.
All right. And I suppose a lot of organizations, but even more so here in Japan, they have very limited resources, right? So getting people to work full-time is definitely not an easy decision to make.
Right.
What kind of did you talk directly to someone, or was there kind of a job offer
No,
out there, or
yeah,
how did it came to be an opportunity for you?
yeah. So I met Okada-san,
Yes.
who is the chair of Animal Rights Center, and she was looking for somebody who could use English, and also at that time, one of the staff members had taken a long-term leave of absence
Oh, okay.
for 2 or couple years or so. So they were actually looking for somebody, and and because it was important to get information in English from overseas and things, I guess she was looking for somebody who could use English, and so so that's how we ended up.
Okay, good.
Working out.
Yeah. So it was right, the right timing and the kind of right
Yeah.
skills. Obviously, you have tons of other skills as well at your disposal, but the ones that were needed for this kind of job, you had them, and that worked out well.
Yeah, I mean, looking back now, I'm actually kind of surprised that she decided to hire me.
Okay.
Is right away because I don't think she knew me that well at that point, and also having worked with her now, she does have very high standards.
Oh, is that so?
I was like, whoa, how did she? Yeah, so I feel very grateful and lucky to have been able to.
And
help.
that was like, you've been back for a year and a half ish, more.
To Japan?
Yeah.
No, I've been in Japan only since end of March. So
Oh,
like
was that so? My time.
half a year.
Yeah. Sense of time is.
Oh,
like
because I met you at
Yeah.
Vegan Gourmet Festival when I happened to be visiting.
Oh yeah,
Japan.
true. I remember the first time we met, right? Okay, so it's been a bit more than half a year since you got to that job. How's been going things?
Actually, less than half a year still, but things are going well. Like, I'm super happy. And the work is very fulfilling and rewarding, and pretty much exactly what I want to be doing. Like, so no, I'm very happy. It's just, it is a lot of work. So I wished I could get more sleep.
Could you give us a few examples of the kind of things you've done so far, or maybe even like of your, if you happen to have one, a kind of regular routine, like work routine or even life routine related things?
So we're still a very small staff of just like 3 of us. So and so we don't necessarily go to our office every day. So it's fairly flexible in that, like, we could work anywhere pretty much most of the time, other than the times that we have like the street outreach or meetings and things like that. So yeah, that's nice. And I've done a lot of things related to English, like researching things about like farm animal conditions or laws in other countries.
I see.
Standards, different methods, and also like just comparing with Japan, how behind Japan is actually, and how actually in reality, like in Japan, the treatment of animals is actually pretty bad, even compared to other countries.
The standards are very low compared to the West.
So just
right now,
trying to highlight that, and also writing some articles about various topics, both in English and Japanese, and then the regular, like, twice a week street activism out in Shibuya, Hachiko. And most recently I started a campaign, photo and video campaign. I don't know if you saw it, but about chickens. Like,
I haven't seen anything, but I haven't been looking hard at all. So
yeah.
Where are you posting?
It's on our website and Facebook.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's basically trying to soliciting photos and videos of chickens or chicks that shows like how cute they are, how adorable they are. Like, just helping to make people make that connection.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, because you were telling me that you would wish to have more time to sleep. I think it's something that a lot of people wish for. But in your case, how busy does this work gets you? Like
Well,
per week or?
well, well, it's supposed to be 40 hours a week. So, but I do end up spending more because
Yeah.
Mostly because I want to, because it's things that are worth doing.
Of course.
And also, like Chihiro-san, Okada-san, she seems like she's like working every waking hour that she's awake.
Yeah.
And I know that I can't sustain that myself. And I want to also do other activism, not just animal rights center stuff, but I want to involve myself in like other ones like 4AJ, For Animals Japan, and like all the other events, because I also kind of have a wish to connect the activists and communities more among different groups. So I keep myself very busy, but it's all good.
No, I'm not saying it's not,
Right.
but I can see how having finally a job that checks most, if not all, of the boxes of what you wanted to do. It doesn't feel like it's a job, but it feels like that's what you want to do with your time, right?
Oh yeah.
And so it's more a matter, from what you just told me, I suppose it's more a matter of like, I have to balance my energy level and how efficient I am at work, because that's, if possible, I want to do as much as I can.
Right.
So that's cool. It's a very it's both a very healthy mindset, but it can also lead to overwork when not managed properly. In the activists kind of sphere, like people who do things because they believe strongly in them. Like I had on the podcast, I had Anna Ako, who's working for Greenpeace Japan, and we talked a bit about like people who burn out as well, and how important it is to recharge, and so I think you're doing a bit of recharging yourself, like on a frequent basis. So that's good. Yeah. All right, so that leads us to the present, more or less.
Okay.
And I want to ask you, before going forward, maybe going a bit back again in time, and how did it evolve, and how is your relationship with your family regarding food and all matters related to this?
Yeah, so let's see. Well, my family, like I have my parents and two younger sisters. And so when I was spending my time in Denmark with the older of the two sisters, she's not vegetarian or anything at that time, but we spent together about a month and a half or so, actually in Denmark. And during that time, she was pretty much vegan, adjusting to my, like, even like cheese, we found like vegan cheese from supermarkets. Like she's addicted to cheese. Like but while I was there, she ate just vegan cheese. And and also I watched Earthlings with her.
Okay.
And so she, I think, understands where I'm coming from. And like also we happened to have, outside of the house that we were staying in, there were a herd of cows. And apparently, well, one day cows, like how many cows? There were like maybe 20 cows or so, a family. And one day a newborn baby had like walked out of the fence because, he or she was small enough to get out, and would not go back to the herd and to the family. And everyone was very worried. Like all the cows were very worried and like calling out for that baby. And then eventually, after many hours, the baby decided to come back into the fence, and all the cows like ran toward her, welcoming him, the baby, and apparently that really it was very moving for my sister Seika to see that the bond between the baby and the rest of the family. So even though she was addicted to dairy, I mean not dairy, but like she eat cheese. I mean dairy cheese. I think from that experience, she mostly like pretty much stopped eating that, and she's like, I mean, she's not. She's at home vegan. Like she lives in Japan, so when she eats out, she eats anything, I guess. But at least she posts pictures with the hashtag vegan a lot for various things. Sometimes not super related, but yeah. So she understands. My other sister, I don't know. Like for a while, for a year or two, she was eating mostly vegan because she was really into yoga and meditation and things like that. So at least she was vegetarian and if not vegan. But now, I don't know. Partly because of the budget, like she has no money or something. Like partly because of budget, she just, I guess, eats whatever she can. And even though she loves animals, actually, she's always liked animals. Had a lot of pets, so-called pets. But yeah, she hasn't really identified herself as vegetarian or anything like that. My parents, my father, he's always been like, I thought he would maybe understand me because he's always been like very considerate even of plants. Like if we didn't water the plants in the pot and like the pots were drying out, he would feel sorry for the plant, and like, yeah, so he has that kind of compassion. So I thought he might understand this, but no. Well, yeah. So no, he thinks he's kind of disappointed that I'm not pursuing this like astronaut route or like SpaceX. Like he thinks I should have stayed at SpaceX and made a lot of money and like become famous or something. Yeah, so both my father and his brother, my uncle, they're like, I mean, I sometimes stay with my uncle here in Hachioji, and every time I go back, he says like, man, Yuki, what are you doing? Like, you got brainwashed into this veganism thing, and like, yeah, I'm super disappointed. I thought you'd be like a professor by now with big house and a pool in Hawaii or something. And I try to explain like that's not what I want necessarily. So yeah, my mom, she's Christian, so I think it was hard to get her to understand this like concept of animals as, you know, something to respect, not for humans, but like animals as individuals. They have, you know, their lives. But when I talk to her about, and so when I go back to her place, sometimes she would like, even though I make it clear that I'm vegan or I don't eat animal products, she sometimes would like cook things with meat in it for me. Yeah, but the last time, or yeah, I talked about the aspect of this animal agriculture taking away a lot of food crops that could otherwise have been fed to people, like hungry people, instead of the farm animals who then become meat for the rich, relatively rich people. She resonated with that concept. Like she felt bad that a lot of poor children or like poor people around the world don't have as much access to food because of this issue. Yeah. So, and she doesn't feel like, unlike my father, she doesn't say, she's a kind of person who like just lets me be however I want to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. It must be challenging. I'm sorry to hear that it's not going as well as it as you might have wanted it to. I can see why, especially I would say especially Japanese people, but it's true. It's true. Like I think worldwide, like where not wanting to go against society's norms and wanting, and that goes in pair with wanting to achieve high standards as far as like what the society views as being high standards, like the pool, the house, high status, etc. Those are goals that it makes total sense for people to hold on them, and I think it requires a very specific kind of life experience and also individual and how they come to be who they are to push that away and feel like the answer to what they're looking for is not there, and to make someone who hasn't experienced that and lives by most if not all of the society main like standards, to make them understand that you actually understand them more than they understand you, right? It's more like you've kind of been there to some extent where they are, and then you feel like you've grown out of it. And I mean, it sounds very like I'm superior, but it's like you kind of escaped the, how do you say, the rat race, like trying to get more stuff, try to get more fame, more money. And stuff, fame, and money, I mean, they're awesome. They get you a lot of things that can, I think, contribute to a very meaningful and enjoyable life. But if they're the end goal, I think you're in for a disappointing ride. During the ride itself, or definitely at the end, right? So I think even though part of your family doesn't really resonate with your lifestyle, you're probably having a more fulfilling life doing this
for sure
than if you had stayed in line with society's norms, just or at least partly to answer the expectations of your father or his brother, etc. So I wish you all the best for the years to come, as far as like at least relationships with them to not grow worse.
Right.
If anything,
it's not bad.
Getting
not
better,
bad.
but
yeah.
Right. Hopefully the growing trend of veganism will be big enough and important enough that at some point they will consider it more as something that was meaningful at the time you chose to do it.
Right.
We'll see.
Yeah. No, when I showed them, for example, when I showed some videos to my uncle, he was like, oh man, I'm getting brainwashed. he's starting to get.
I see
some of the concept. Okay. But
all right.
Yeah.
So the conversation is not totally impossible.
No,
okay.
I don't think so.
All right, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. And how has it been for you? So because you came to Japan several times, you explored the south of Japan like a few years ago, and at the time you were kind of vegan already. And how has it been for you trying to eat vegan? Or as close as possible to vegan food here in Japan throughout your all your travels and since you came back as well?
Oh, okay. In Japan, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. When I was traveling in Japan, I was not really vegan yet, so I had allowed seafood. So even though I didn't go out of my way to eat seafood, I mean these sea creatures, but I also valued the experience of trying something new or something local, or if someone served it to me, my host or something, where I was staying or something. So I did try some shellfish and things like that. These animals like that when I was doing my travel in Japan, just out of curiosity and taste. Yeah, looking back, I feel sorry for that. But yeah, and
Well, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
regarding shellfish, you might have heard about this already, but I believe that Peter Singer, that you
Yeah.
definitely know, right? Animal Liberation, etc. The Australian philosopher wrote until a few editions of his Animal Liberation book, who I think got published in the 70s, if I'm not wrong. The first few editions, at least, or at least the first one, he was saying like shellfish is up to your own judgment because science tells us that they might be even less reactive to whatever their environment is than plants, some plants. So it's up to you. Plus, they provide, like, if the water they're in is polluted, then it's not good. But if it's not too much the case, then they provide very helpful nutrients for people who are, apart from that, 100% plant-based. So it was like kind of, it's up to you. And he was probably having some from time to time. I don't know. But in the edition I read, he was saying like, before I was saying this, but now I'm like, just let's be cautious. We never know, so let's not eat it.
Right.
So it's a bit like, in another way, it's a bit like the honey issue, where the vegan society at some point was like, it's up to you, and now they're like, no, let's not have honey. So I understand that you might feel sorry for those shellfishes, but scientifically speaking, they're very, very far from being as, let's say, potentially, right, able to experience negative feelings or like pain, etc., than fish or other animals. But I avoid them as well.
Little hard to believe, but yeah, possible. But yeah, I want to be cautious and err on the side of respecting them, for sure.
Okay, sure.
Yeah,
That's good.
and yeah. So as far as like now, it's super easy because I can choose what I eat. It's not like somebody else is like. Well, it's not like I'm like trying to explore new food or, I mean, actually now, I mean, this was when I was in Midway that I became vegan. The thought process was like, like maybe it's not. Well, like I definitely don't need to eat animals from the ocean or from the water, and so if that's the case, it's not worth like taking someone's life to eat something that's not even necessary for me. So yeah, that's the stance I take, and it's very easy. Like I guess like even socially, it's much easier. I mean, I can always find. I'm not super nitpicky in terms of like food. In that, like wherever restaurants I end up going with other people, even like non-vegetarian people, I can always find something like to eat.
What would that be in Japan, for example? Because I know it's complicated in Japan for most people.
Yeah.
What would that be?
Well, something to eat, as in like maybe just edamame or like like just like or bean sprouts like moyashi or like So I mean, I can always eat later.
I see.
Is what I mean. Like I don't have to be like satisfy hunger right there and then.
Okay, I got it. Have you thought about how doing so is great to be social even among non-vegetarian vegan people in such places, because Japan doesn't offer a lot of restaurants where you can have a decent meal. But for the few that you need to look for, right, before going out. But don't you think it might have both a kind of a bit of positive impact, because you stay social, but on the other hand, if I'm vegan, I'm going to eat the same as Yuki. It's boring.
Right.
Aren't you worried about that a bit?
Yeah. So I try to, I mean, when I have any amount of control, when I go out, if I go out to eat with somebody who's not vegetarian even, I try to choose places that's vegan or vegetarian restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's much easier to talk about it, right? Like if
Of course.
the other person, yeah. So, yeah, let's see. Actually, I guess I've been like maybe not hanging out that much, or at least not eating out that much with like people with drastically different eating choices.
Yeah, no one invited you to the yakiniku. Yeah.
No, I've been invited a couple times maybe, but yeah, I haven't been able to make it.
The yakiniku, for those who don't know, it's the Korean barbecue. So
Right.
even if you have the vegetables, they're going to be grilled on the grill with all the animal fat, and the smell is going to be like just hell for any vegan who feels averse like feelings for that kind of cooked meat. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so are you mostly eating out or mostly eating at home, or how does it work? And sorry to continue this question here.
Oh,
but,
no.
what did you end up finding as far as like lodging options here? Because I believe at some point you were interested in trying to do a kind of co-op thing like
Yeah.
you experienced back in Berkeley.
Right.
How did that go?
Oh, so I was I wanted to live in a share house
Mhm.
because I love communal living. And I found one called Yume Veggie House,
Mm-hmm.
meaning Dream Veggie House. Even though the name has veggie in it, it was not vegetarian.
Okay.
But at least they are a little more conscious of their
Alright.
food choices. And so it was like eight of us living there. And sometimes we would have like nabe, like a hot pot and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And yeah, in that kind of situation, I brought in my own ingredients to share with the rest of the people.
I see.
Because nobody else was vegetarian. Yeah, so, and they were pretty receptive to me talking about it too. And as far as my own food, like yeah. Oh, as far as the share house, that share house was closing down at the end of June. And I knew it, but I still joined because I wanted to have the experience. But and when it closed down, I wanted to continue it as a new share house that's like, veggie, like preferably vegan share house.
Okay.
Or at least people who are interested in that. So, but turns out that that same property was like had already been taken by somebody else, so it didn't happen. But I'm still interested.
All right. So what did you find out like in the meantime? I guess you're there for living on your own, or?
So far, I've been kind of. After that, I went back to my grandma's place in Hachioji.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I've been kind of moving around still, not settled in yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for like a good place that I actually want to live.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah,
so-
it's a good thing that you had family in the vicinity
Yeah,
then. Well,
yeah.
I mean, Hachioji is not that close, but
Right.
it's still manageable, I
Yeah.
guess. And Shibuya is on the right side of town. So
Right.
basically, Hachioji is what's about 50 kilometers west of Tokyo, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, and once you enter Tokyo, very soon is Shibuya, or it's almost directly
Yeah.
there, just a bit south of Shinjuku, where I'm living. I'm saying this for the listeners who don't know the geography of Tokyo, but where I'm living is the other side of town. So if I was in Hachioji to go to work, I would have to cross Tokyo,
Right.
and so that would be less convenient. But
Right.
plus, Hachioji gives you view on the mountains,
Mhm.
right? Which doesn't happen even here in
Right.
Shinjuku or Shibuya. So
Right.
I guess I don't
Yeah.
know how you like it.
No,
but-
it's nice. I don't want to be in the middle of the city, preferably.
Yeah,
I like
I
to be
was-
somewhere more with nature.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because I grew up in a small village in France between the age of 7 and 14. And it's like 5,000 inhabitants, a few other villages
Wow.
around, a lot of nature,
Yeah.
fields, etc. Right? I was often outside, etc. So that's a specific experience. And then I moved to Brussels for the next 9 years or so. And I'm both in love with what I remember of like countryside living, and I just adore living in a city because of all the opportunities, right? I'm always finding something to do, and the amount of people you can meet, etc. It's amazing, and I found cities like just crazy amazing. But I have this romantic side of like that wants to be more like in touch with nature. And I think everyone has that to a certain extent. You don't have to be a romantic, but it helps.
Right.
And you having lived in such a variety of places that are directly as much in nature as one can imagine. How does it feel to be living here or like even like in other cities you've been to? What is your take on everyday life and the quality of everyday life? You know, don't you feel like all this fake nature, even being here in Yogi Park maybe, right, is not the real deal? Or how do you navigate there with how you feel about things and even maybe conceptualize?
That was one of my major concerns about coming to Tokyo, because especially coming from the big island of Hawaii, I knew that I would not like living in a city like this, where I cannot find plants or trees or animals, or even soil. But the work was worthwhile enough that I wanted to give it a try. And having come here, like you, I mean, I'm really enjoying it too. Actually, the city, all the things happening here, and like all the opportunities. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm not sure how long you. I'm pretty optimistic kind of person so I think I can stay happy even here. But I do at the same time miss a lot the nature, and sometimes I do go. Some weekends I've gone away to like Yamanashi or Nagano, and that's been so nice, so refreshing to breathe in like clean air and like seeing animals, and So if I'm possibly gonna stay long term in Japan, I want to find some kind of situation where I can put myself more in nature.
I see.
But I'm not sure.
I see. So it would be something like, at minimum, the kind of place that Achioji is, but never living in Shibuya, right?
Right. I don't think I would want to live in Shibuya, no.
Yeah. It's a pretty crazy part of Tokyo to live in. I mean, you love it or you hate it, but it's definitely a concrete jungle.
Right.
And where I live is more downtown, and I can get a bit away from the craziness of the city, but where I go out for dancing and etc., it's the middle of the city, and it is crazy, and I know I'm not getting out enough. So coming here, for example, just for the interview, even if I'm not going to do any acro after that, probably is, being sitting on the ground and getting a bit my shoes dirty, I think it's valuable.
Yeah.
But with you and your aspirations of activism, everything you do remotely, I can see how you could do that living in the countryside, even in Japan. But if you want to be active, like on the streets, it's going to be more complicated, right?
Right. Yeah, that was the constant dilemma. When I was in Hawaii, I was doing quite a bit of activism, but I did not feel super effective or as effective as I could be, because just the number of people that I can approach or be in contact with is super limited in such a rural place. Whereas in Shibuya, Hachiko, Mae, you can reach a lot of people.
I see. I'd like to ask you a question about this outreach in Shibuya, the Hachiko Mae place. So for those who don't know, the Hachiko is a dog. You can look it up on the internet. It's a very famous story. It even became a movie with Richard Gere, so you can find that. But more famous than that is even like the Shibuya Crossing, the one that everyone takes into like movies or like time lapses that you see all over the world. And so there's an amount of people that's hard to fathom when you don't live here or when you don't visit the town, the city. And I've done outreach there twice, I think. Once for cage-free eggs, and the other time was like kind of showing Earthlings videos. And I found it less. It appeared to me being less efficient, or the contact with the people less. Let's say happening at a less to a lesser extent than the outreach the few times I went to Kawasaki for the For Animals Japan, and I wanted to know what your experience how it compared to that.
I've been going to both, as you might know, and you should come again to Earthlings or in Shibuya, because we do, like, lately, I guess, maybe we're getting more people, like volunteers, 10 to 20 people each time. And the more people we have, it seems to attract more attention of the people.
Of course.
And we do get a lot of conversations with the people, possibly even more than, nothing to compare, but like, so... I find it super effective, actually. So many people do have enough curiosity to watch what's being shown on the video, or like, we give out a lot of leaflets.
I'm really glad to hear that, and thanks for the invite. I will strongly consider it. Although I'm still in the process of getting back to my regular rhythm here in Japan. I've been back for already 3+ weeks, but. I'm having a lot of projects running at the same time, not all related to animal rights though, but my personal experience was that with that amount of people walking in Shibuya and the very few people doing the activism, it was like kind of we were overwhelmed by the number of people, and so it wasn't that visible. And in Kawasaki, the ratio was way better. So you're more visible because there's less people. There's still a lot of people walking, but you're in it's strategically a better spot, I feel, right? That's how I felt. So if I had to choose between one or the other, that's why at some point I decided, okay, I'm going to go to Kawasaki and probably not to Shibuya. Plus there was when it happens, like during the month and everything that I was taking into consideration. But I'll look into it again.
No, I love the For Animals Japan, for AJ, Kawasaki, and Yokohama ones too, and because they're I think it might be a little easier to engage in even longer personal conversations with people. Although lately, at least, that's been happening a lot in Shibuya too. And many people do not just walk by, but actually stop and watch. So,
All right, cool. And so it seems like you don't especially have a clear, like, kind of plan for the years to come. What's the minimum amount of time you intend to be staying here in Japan, and to what extent are you, like, what's in your mind now about the near future and the not so near future?
I'm pretty open, but I've committed to helping with the Animal Rights Center for at least 1 year. Which means end of March, until end of March. So I know that I will be in Japan until then. After that, it's still open. I don't know. Depends on, like, where I'm at that point, and like how I'm still enjoying my living in Tokyo, living and working in Tokyo. Depends on that, and I'm not making plans, or I don't have any plans.
All right. I see. Is there any other place that you, out of curiosity, you would like to do some meaningful work in, like another country or something else, or do you feel like you've seen enough for now? And
oh no, I definitely haven't seen enough, and I've
says the guy who's been to almost everywhere in the world compared to most people.
I've looked into, for example, helping back in Berkeley, California. Because there's the movement called Direct Action Everywhere. Do you know that one?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that one is growing, and I find it pretty effective, and able to possibly make big changes. So I'm interested in becoming part of that. they have about maybe a few hundred, 200 or 300 activists concentrated in Berkeley, animal rights activists, and already making big changes like ban of fur in Berkeley and San Francisco and things like that. And so I've considered possibly going there to become part of that, but then I don't know, like where I feel like I can be more effective in Japan because like there are enough activists in Berkeley.
Yes.
Whereas here still not that many
Yeah.
activists, but still huge population to outreach to.
Exactly.
And I guess my contribution as like someone who can use English might be helpful here, and but also knowing a little bit of Japanese culture. So we'll see. Like so far at the moment, I feel like I'm trying to be as effective as I can at my current circumstance, but I'm still looking to see like where I can, how and how I can be possibly even more effective for reducing the suffering of animals.
I see. It totally makes sense to me that you would be, at least to some extent, like divided between wanting to explore new horizons, but also feeling like you can do a more efficient job, or rather than there's not going to be probably not going to be at least immediately a good someone who can replace you here, right? For the kind of job you're doing, because there's so few people doing this kind of job, and then to have enough fluency and knowledge about the English-speaking world, etc. It's not every day that they're gonna have people wanting to work for them and having that kind of skills. I like to hear your opinion about. So usually when we talk veganism, we talk about animal rights, we talk about environment and also health, right? Like human health. Yeah. And from our discussion together so far, I think I'm right if I say that you're very focused on the animal right part. Yeah. And the suffering, etc. Yeah. Right? What's your take on especially the environmental part of the vegan message?
Yeah. I think it's also very important. To me, like that part is much in comparison to the direct suffering that the animals are going through almost all their lives, pretty much all their lives. I think it's much less of a priority, the environmental concerns, to me, although just because like the environmental effects is kind of more shared among more to a somewhat lesser extent, but to more wider range of like
activities,
species and lives. But like the suffering part, if you end up being one of these animals in these factories, for example, or even fish farms or something, it's so horrible. So it's like hard to compare. But at the same time, I'm super interested in pushing the environmental aspect of it, because even environmental concerns by itself is way more than enough reason to eliminate this animal agriculture thing. So, and what I'm especially interested in is because a lot of people are becoming interested in the environment, concerned about climate change and things. I want to engage that population into this common, it's a common cause. And I'm trying to go to these events and like meet these people who are into environmental activism to connect with them and possibly work with them more and more. I think that's critical. And about health too. Health is not a huge my personal health or human health is not as much of a concern, but again, at the same time, that's like super, super important and something I want to. Actually, I think personal health is the possibly the best way for most amount of people to actually enter into looking into this issue.
Yeah.
Because, I think it's an easy way for a lot of people to, actually resonate with. And so, yeah, I'm interested in that too.
All right. Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I think it really depends on the way people and human beings relate to issues, right? When
Yeah.
you don't see and you don't hear something on a daily basis, it doesn't have any impact on your on really your decision making, right?
Yeah.
But your health, you feel the way you feel every day. So
Yeah.
if you're able to have people experience a better way of feeling, like in their daily lives, or just have them project themselves in the future being healthier, it's definitely a better motivation. And the environmental aspect, it's usually way too far ahead to really be the decisive factor. But different people, different reactions.
Yeah.
And I had kind of an agenda asking you about those two other aspects, because personally, health has been at the center of my adult life most of the time, and animal rights has been only a recent thing. And the environment part is, I think, more on the side of the animal rights. It's like how to be a good human being, and be someone who's not damaging the earth and causing pain, etc. Right?
Yeah.
And so you traveled a lot. I travel a fair amount, and I'm still not in peace with my amount of traveling and everything related to CO2 emissions and everything. Have you given any thought about this, like on a personal level? And if so, what are your answers to that kind of?
Are you talking about
question?
like emissions from airplanes?
Yeah, and
stuff?
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought. No, I haven't. To be honest, I haven't thought too much about the emissions from airplane.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I've seen the numbers, and it for people who do travel by airplane a lot, it is fairly significant. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of benefit to traveling as well,
definitely.
long term. And also something like changing the way you eat, the choices you make. That's also something that can have what do you call it? Chain reaction effect to people around you. In that changing the way you eat can have, potentially exponential effect, which may overwhelm possibly in terms of emissions and things. So I don't know. To be honest, I haven't thought enough. I'd
All
say.
right. No worries. I didn't mean to trap you.
Yeah.
It's because I'm curious myself. I'm looking into ways to neutralize a bit my carbon footprint while not stopping flying, which there might be ways. I'm just looking to it. I haven't reached any clear-cut answer yet, but what I do know is that on a personal level, and you brought up the fact that being plant-based can influence people around you, and so it's kind of a ripple effect. That might be true. It's definitely true to some extent, but as far as the carbon emission, the carbon footprint, I don't know to what extent that would be really measurable and true overall. But having a 100% sustainable lifestyle on a daily basis yourself, like being vegan, like not buying anything new, like doing secondhand, being very active in trying to have as neutral as possible footprint, which is impossible to be neutral, but as low as possible. If you even do one flight and back to the other side of the world, you just go way higher. Your carbon footprint just goes way higher than someone who eats meat the whole year and doesn't travel.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. It all depends on how you do the math.
Yeah.
But everything I've looked up so far goes in that direction. It's like one travel, like back and so I'm going back to Europe twice a year at this moment. Like it's been true for the past 2 years. But even only once, it would be like if my concern was carbon footprint, I'd rather I'd do more good eating meat and not traveling. And I mean, if I wasn't traveling, I wouldn't eat meat, right? The idea is like I wouldn't do either.
Yeah.
But it's a bit heartbreaking when you see the numbers. You're like, oh, really? I guess I have to at some point either ignore this forever or take a stance. I mean, we also, when you eat, right, you have a choice between two options. When you travel, most of the time, you have the choice to travel or not, but the way you travel is not always that available to you. I've read an article recently about a guy who decided to not use any planes anymore, but he's a researcher, and so he traveled from Australia something to the United States by boat on a cargo ship or something. And I mean, most people won't ever consider that kind of option, right? So I think it's not totally something that you need to put pressure on yourself about, and kind of also rely on the advances in technology and stuff like that. But it is a question that has been annoying me for about a year or so.
Well, the way I think about this is like, again, about animals, but like, if I fly back to Europe and back, for example, I guess I will raise the demand for flights, and that could potentially contribute to adding another flight, which would,
at least not reduce it. Yeah.
Right. But like a lot of times, like if the flight is not full, anyways, I don't know how much. But anyway,
so that's where at some point you need to rely on how experts come up with the numbers, right? You can't do all the research yourself.
Yeah.
And so, I consider that thing too, but isn't it a bit similar to that person who says like, anyways, the meat is already in the supermarket.
Right. So,
it can, I guess there's some amount of similarities there.
Well, I acknowledge that, buying flights will raise the demand for more flights. But eating meat, for example, like if you eat a chicken or fish, in one meal you could be like, directly contributing to the raising the demand for like a chicken. You could be eating like maybe a quarter of a chicken, 1/4 of one living being in one meal. If you eat a fish or something, like that individual, went through, and shrimps too. Like you could be eating like several shrimp. So that's like direct hit.
You see more the impact you have in your plate, or you can imagine it easier. But I think everything related to carbon footprint and climate change and the effect of climate change, because at the end of the day, the problem is not how much carbon, how big your carbon footprint is like the ripple effect again, like. Because climate change ultimately will impact living beings like human beings and all non-living beings. And so how would you calculate the numbers for how much suffering or how much wildlife destruction are you contributing to doing anything you do in your life, right? Even recording this podcast with electricity, I charged my battery before coming. So it's always like kind of, there's nothing neutral in life, right? But as far as flying goes, I was wanting to ask you your opinion in case you had thought about it, and I guess I'll keep on asking people's opinion until I find an answer either on my own or like
Yeah.
someone who, but that's
I think
not just, yeah.
Oh, sorry to
Go ahead,
interrupt,
go ahead.
but like I think there's a huge difference between suffering while still allowing freedom to all these living things, including humans, and forced suffering from taking away their freedom.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think I'd much rather be living in apocalyptic world in terms of environment where the climate is going to hell or it's crazy climate or super hot I'd much rather be that than being trapped in a cage all my life.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. And we're talking extremes here, right? So it's not like this is actually going to happen, but those are still questions worth considering, I think, and those are valid points.
Well, I'm not sure that it's that extreme because, for those chickens, for example, that's what's happening to them.
No,
right?
totally. I was talking about the apocalyptic.
Yeah, apocalyptic.
Scenario.
Yeah, that is extreme, but that makes it even more the argument that that respecting the life of the individual is, to me, much more important.
I feel you on that.
Yeah.
It's really hard, and we're wired to feel empathy towards animals and human beings as well. So it is definitely, if I had one battle to choose, that would be the one.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you on that. All right. Well, thanks for indulging in my quest for more consistency in my consumer choices.
Right.
And last but not least, what do you see Japan become as far as everything related to veganism in the next few months? Maybe because we're getting closer to the Olympics, but also years. Do you see any trends growing, or what kind of changes do you see?
It's hard to say still, having not spent that much time in Japan yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to say, but I'd say no. I know that the awareness is going up, and there's more, and I really want to take advantage of this Olympics thing to, we at Animal Rights Center will try to do our best with that too, to, leverage that to increase at least the awareness and the options and things like that. So I hope there will be a big change. I'm optimistic, but at the same time, it's not going to be easy, and I don't know. I'd say even the years that I've known Japan, during the these many years that I've known Japan, things have changed, obviously, with the number of vegan restaurants and how common the word vegan is and things like that. So it's definitely going up. It's there's definitely something to look up to, but in terms of, it will take work, and I don't know. I guess I don't know. Sorry.
Okay. No worries. So you don't envision a fully a 20% vegan population in Japan 10 years from now?
Well, I think I want to keep thinking of ways to make that happen. I can't predict it, but I want, if something like that happens, if something like what Gary Yourofsky did in Israel, if something like that could happen in Japan, I want to make it happen. So I want to keep talking to people like you and others to discuss, brainstorm possibilities of.
All right.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, so Gary Yourofsky was a very vocal activist, very active activist. That I think he's retired right now, but I don't know about his impact in Israel. What I do know, I remember reading a number about 5 or was it 7% of the population that was vegan or something like that. But what's your knowledge about that situation?
I don't have like, I'm not sure if I had the accurate information either, but like Gary Yourofsky's the most what's it called, most important speech you ever hear or something, you can find on YouTube. That resonated a lot with among people in Israel.
He got on television over there as
right,
well.
that was the big part. It got on the mass media, on the TV, and almost overnight, apparently, a big fraction of the people, started, going toward vegan. I don't know what the actual percentage is.
I heard 5, but 5 would be huge because in the United States, I think it's 2% of people who declare themselves as vegan, which is not different from what I read than even like 10, 15, or 20 years ago. So actually, what's really going up is the amount of flexitarians. Those are really like the amount of products for them. And that's a blessing. But vegan is still very hard to do for most people consistently because of everything we haven't really discussed, but all the social aspects to it, etc. Right? Okay. Maybe a few quick fire questions. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
No, I liked how you went chronologically because that's the way I think too. I like things in chronological order.
It makes listening so much easier, so I'm trying to keep things that way.
So, let me think. Right now I can't think of anything.
All right, good. Like, if after 2 hours or so, like, you had a long list of things I didn't ask, I would be like, oh no. But on the other hand, I would be very curious to know what that is. Would you be okay to share with us the best day and also the worst day of your life so far?
Oh, man. You should have asked me before so I could think about it. Let's see. Man, what is the best day of my life? The worst day of my life? Man. Well, it's hard to say, but one of the more memorable days of my life may have been just like saving when I was at Midway Atoll, like saving some of the albatross chicks who are drowning in the ocean because they tried to fly away too early when they still had downy feathers. Worst. Well, I mean, this was not bad, but one night I tried camping out by the river near Osaka with my little sister, and I totally forgot my the poles for the tent, so we could not put up the tent, so we had to sleep on top of. It was a hot summer night with a lot of mosquitoes, and it was pretty miserable, just like being hot and getting bitten by a mosquito.
Oh no! That's
but
terrible.
no, I'm sure there's been worse things.
Oh no, I'm sure, but like it sounds pretty horrible to me. Okay, thanks for sharing. So, what is your favorite word?
Well, I don't know, but the word that came up when you asked me that right now is respect. Yeah.
All right, I like that. Is there anything you're really bad at?
Oh yeah, a lot. I'm bad at talking. I'm bad at eye contact. I'm bad at I think I'm a little kind of bad at humor.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish I love humor, and I wish like I could All
right, so maybe you want to add on your challenges for